So many games that I want to play on the channel. I wish I had some sort of guidance to help me decide. Well, that's a start.
Greetings fellow flat cats and welcome to the Spectrum. Space, the final frontier. This seemingly endless void of wonder and discovery has inspired many individuals to make wonderful and enjoyable, as well as crappy and disappointing, gaming titles for us to play. One of the best things about using space as a theme is that you can create and employ virtually anything and just say, it's science. Want to make and run a space hotel while mining other planets in your spare time? There's a game for that. Want to survive an undiscovered alien threat on a derelict spaceship? There's a game for that. Want to try and impregnate as many alien species as you can? There's a game for that. You dirty bastard. This is the standard for today's gaming, but back in the day, ideas that were as complicated yet as simple as the technology is what made you money, and if you were lucky, history. And that's exactly what happened to Ed Logg and Lyle Rains after they made today's game, Asteroids. Conceived as a casual idea during a meeting, Asteroids is a game where you survive for as long as you can in an endless asteroid field. Famous for its iconic look, sounds, and its use of physics, it sold over 70,000 arcade cabinets and over 3 million copies on consoles in the US alone. It overtook Space Invaders in popularity and became Atari's most successful game of its time. Now, a franchise like this must be really good if it can achieve things like that. So, what's the story? Well, let's take a look as we go back the furthest we've been so far in this series, to the 60s, where we meet a man named Steve Slug Russell. Believe it or not, without Russell, it's possible that video games wouldn't exist, as he is often credited with making the first ever digital video game. He worked at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, helping create the PDP-1 minicomputer, which looks like it would fit perfectly into the Fallout universe. Russell was inspired by Toho comics and space stories to create, in his words, a spaceship trainer. He was also a member of the Tech Model Railway Club, and it was here, where old men would be playing with toy trains, that he would discuss with his fellow train enthusiasts the idea of an intertraceable program that allowed users to play a game with each other. He collaborated with them to create this program on the same minicomputer he was helping develop, and within the space of a year, Space War was made. Oh, sorry. Space War! You need to shout it because of the explanation point. Space War was installed on several PDPs, making it the first widely distributed video game. Now, obviously, I don't own a PDP, but thanks to everyone's favourite frenemy, the internet, I was able to play a recreation of it. Made with only 8 buttons in mind, Space War is a 2-player only game where you fight each other for bragging rights, while avoiding the gravity well of a nearby star. Oh god, this is awkward to control. It's like we're doing an ice show. Of the 8 buttons, each player uses 4. Left and right turn as standard. The confusing part is down is to accelerate and up is to shoot. By instinct, I kept wanting to press the space button to shoot and up to move forward. It took some getting used to, but I quickly got the hang of it. Sadly, I had no one to play with, so I had to play with the person I hate most, myself. Trying to operate both ships at once made it look like more of an interpretive dance than a war. As I was dancing away, I was very impressed by what the game was capable of, especially since it comes from the 60s. First off is the visuals. They look amazing. You might think, duh, it's a remake, it will look better. Well, the PDP-1 was capable of mimicking these colours, and it looks so pretty on the original hardware. Bear in mind, later games would look like this. Even the minor and simplistic details look great, from the design of the ships, the echoing afterburns, and the fading trails of the missiles. It's had so much effort and love put into it, and it shows so well in its presentation. Sound is unfortunately not present in the game, leaving the only sounds you have being the cheers of victory and frustration between the players.
No, 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 no!
The mechanics of it were also mind-blowing. There is of course the star with the gravity pull, but there's also drifting and hyperdrive. When I say drifting, I don't mean deja vu, I mean that when you stop thrusting, your ship will continue to move due to momentum, and you need to counteract it to stay in control. Concerning hyperdrive, it simply means that both the ships and the missiles will emerge on the opposite side of the screen they exit from. Now of course, it ain't perfect, but its flaws are minor. The biggest one is that the thrusters are quite weak, so trying to adjust yourself after moving forward yields next to no results. Other than that though, it's a surprisingly fun game and you can adjust the options to add more stipulations. Even current students of Mentor and PDP-1 Restoration team member, Lyle Bickley, love to play it.
What I find really amazing, Mark, is that when I mentor high school kids and college kids, and I'll bring them here and we'll play Space War, and even though they have PlayStation 4s and they have Xboxes, they will play for hours.
And then you're talking and I got you.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
What an asshole!
It was way ahead of its time, and because of that, it helped inspire game designers and developers for the future, acting as the foundation to allow games to evolve and become the disappointments and cash grabs they are today. Oh, how far we've fallen. Space War made that much of an impact that in 2007, it was voted one of the top 10 most important video games of all time, and in 2018, got inducted into the Video Game Hall of Fame. Students at the MIT would later expand on the original title, becoming the inspiration for the 1971 title Galaxy Game, acting as a sort of expansion pack, adding new mechanics, improvements, and so on. 8 years later, during some casual blue sky thinking, Ed Logg and Lyle Raines would use Space War as inspiration to unknowingly create a legend of gaming. The star of the show, Asteroids. The conception of the much-loved title came by random chance. The year, 1979. The location, Atari headquarters. Two men named Ed Logg, with 2 G's, and Lyle Raines are in a meeting discussing a title in development named Cosmos. One of the features of Cosmos was an indestructible meteor. Raines turned to Logg and said, "Well, why don't we have a game where you shoot rocks and blow them up?" Logg responded by describing a concept where players selectively shoot rocks that break into smaller pieces. Both agreed on the concept and worked on it once Cosmos was cancelled.
What?
Using hardware originally developed for Lunar Lander, they began to develop Asteroids using elements from Space Invaders, the totally not Star Wars rip-off Starfire, and of course, Space War! Right from the get-go, the similarities are obvious. The physics and shape of the ship match that of the Wedge, the timer, which doubles as the music, is easily comparable to the Space Invaders music, and the high score element was taken from Starfire. The only differences in its look are a lack of background and being monochrome. Gameplay-wise, however, it has more differences than similarities. The most obvious is the goal of the game: destroy all asteroids on screen and rinse and repeat until you die. But there are also flying saucers that will attack you if you take too long to destroy the asteroids, and the gap between their appearances will get shorter and shorter as you take longer and longer. As for how it plays, it's pretty damn fun. The physics have been polished to a machine. It's now much easier to control the ship while still offering the right level of challenge needed to keep you on your toes, and so you can feel like Maverick with some sick piloting tricks.
Bravo.
Consequences also plague you as you have 3 lives to start and win 1 for every 10,000 points. Hyperdrive is still present, but it's easy to abuse when destroying asteroids and makes it less dangerous when respawning. Of course, being a game of the early ages of gaming, there isn't much to say about it. Near enough anything I said about the PDP title, I'm not shouting it anymore because my throat hurts, can be said about Asteroids, but there are a few fun facts I can share about it. The look and sound of the game are iconic, and believe it or not, it runs easier than Space Invaders. Did you think, like I did, that the Space Invaders sped up over time as part of a design choice? Well, you'd be mistaken. The reason they're so slow is because it used pixel graphics, also known as raster graphics. And even the most advanced processors of the time couldn't render them without slowing down. The reason they sped up as enemies die is because it becomes easier to process with less foes on screen. Lucky for Atari, this accidental mechanic worked very well for the game, but in order to expand the genre of shoot 'em up, they had to come up with a new way to implement graphics. Enter vector graphics, where the shapes are done from point to point rather than made up of dots. This is easier for the processor to handle, allowing more fluid frame rates, better game speed, much cleaner upscaling which allows it to be played on bigger displays, and on original hardware, it gave the impression that you were playing with coloured shapes when in actuality, it was outlines. Asteroids is also one of the first games ever to need a patch made for it. This is because of the lurking exploit. Thanks to the hyperdrive mechanic, players discovered that leaving two small meteorites in play reduced your risk of being hit and allowed you to lurk near the edge of the screens and fire off screen until you hit the UFOs on the opposite side as they spawned in. This allowed players to rack up insane amounts of points and lives, leading to arcades complaining on how much money they were losing.
Mark Ermatinger is only 14, not old enough to operate a car, not old enough to pull the lever in a voting booth, but old enough to be a wizard at operating this game and confident enough to try to break the world's record of 17 million points accumulated over 33 hours of continuous play.
So Atari created a patch version to send out and got stricter on their playtesting quality. Wow, that sounds fantastic. A games company fixing a game rather than just putting it off. Asteroids was a smash hit. Positive reviews caused many sore fingers. Arcade cabinets had to be remodeled to hold more coins, and a lot of emptied wallets as it knocked Space Invaders off the top spot of the most popular arcades game. Of course, times change, and video games were slowly making their way into people's homes. To keep up with the trend, Atari makes the 2600 and ports over some of their most loved titles. Naturally, Asteroids was one of those ports and released in 1981 on the 2600. A gift and a curse about the Asteroid format is that it's quick to talk about as it hardly has changed so far and plays almost exactly the same. The 2600 port ditches the vector graphics and returns to pixel, resulting in a worse looking title as you would expect. It also adds colour, but that seems to be the only noticeable upgrade of sorts. The sound has reduced in quality slightly, and now the shooting sound feels generic, while the music gives the impression Jaws is on his way to bite your arse off. First things first, however, as a 2600 title, it means that it has a lot of modes. Just how many though? How in the fuck did they make 66 variants of Asteroid? Well, the answer is, they didn't. Despite the high number, there is no obvious changes between the modes. No extra weapons, visual changes, rule changes, or even sound changes. The only obvious one is when you reach 39 and it turns on 2-player mode, where you take turns after the last player loses a life. Thankfully, Google came to the rescue, and I got some answers. Modes 1 to 8 includes what it refers to as hyperspace. Pushing down on the stick uses your ship's feature. Hyperspace will make you invisible temporarily to avoid asteroids, but may also put you directly into the path of another. 19 to 16 and 42 to 49 for 2-player mode give your ships the shields feature, allowing you to protect yourself from damage up to 2 seconds. 17 to 24 lets you do a 180 on the spot, and 25 to 32 gives you nothing. You have no special feature and are to rely on your own skill to get by. You may ask, why is there 66 if there are only 4 play modes? Well, because each of those numbers alters slightly. They change things like the speed of the game and extra life bonus frequency, offering you a fair number of stipulations to try and survive, which, to be honest, feels harder even on the default settings. The mechanics don't match perfectly with the arcade title. Shots are now reduced to 2-round bursts and you're limited to 2 missiles on screen at a time. If one hits an asteroid, you're able to shoot another instantly. The thruster doesn't feel as powerful and the drifting feels off, almost unresponsive in a way. Your ship is harder to control and pulling off maverick stunts isn't as easy anymore either. Aiming is made harder because the ship's rotation is locked to a number of fixed directions rather than the full 360 of the original, meaning shots often miss their mark because you can't fine-tune your aim by those much needed extra degrees. The UFOs are still around, but they don't appear till later in the game. They may appear at 7,500 points, but will appear at 15,000 points. At least, that's what the instructions say. 21k points later, I still don't get to blast ET on his way home. Overall, it's not a bad port. It's competent and delivers what you expect with a few extra features, but don't expect something as good as the original here. Arcade titles were still being made as part of the series, but also hardly changed the formula. Deluxe played the same, but had a fancy display of reflecting the image onto a window with a poster background behind it. It also had the shield ability and a brand new enemy, the satellite. When defeated, it would break up into enemies that home in on you. But these small changes weren't enough to boost the series as players were getting tired of the repetitive nature of the game, and Deluxe sold poorly as a result. In an attempt to boost sales and income, Atari pulled the game off their shelves to release, which is a, quote, descendant of Asteroids. In 1982, Atari released Space Duel, which, as you guessed it, turned out to be a clone of Asteroids with little differences. It played the same and used the same control scheme, the difference being the look of the game, the number of players, enemies, and the colour scheme. Despite its disguise, it sold better than Deluxe, but it wasn't enough to save the series, and Asteroid, like many other titles before it, was pushed to the side. For 4 years, Atari wouldn't see another port of Asteroids. An attempt to put one on the 5200 was made, but never published, possibly due to the video game crash of '83. Then in '86, while Atari was in its recovery, Asteroids returned to the 7800, which played with better graphics, better controls, and better sounds, but with less feature than its 2600 counterpart. With only one mode, the formula got very stale, very quick. The UFOs made their regular appearances again, but in one size, and your ship only has one feature, the risky but helpful hyperdrive. The 7800 title is best described as Ronda Rousey's Piper gimmick, a copycat with less to offer. As part of their recovery, Atari created 2 consoles, the previously mentioned 7800 and the 2600 Junior. Then they began throwing out console titles left and right to generate an income. Bounty Bob Strikes Back, the 7800 version of Asteroids, Centipede, Real Sports Boxing, and Solaris. But they would continue to publish arcade titles to aid in their financial recovery. One of which is the 1987 release and third sequel to the Asteroid series, Blasteroids. Just looking at this game, you can tell we're getting close to the 90s, as the overall presentation has received an overhaul and is way more engaging than ever. Raster graphics give the game a brand new look, but that's not all the technological advances have allowed. I'm not going to go too much into this game as it looks like it could be an arcade episode when I bring that series back, but the plot is an evil alien with many disgusting buttholes named Mukor rules the known universe, and it's up to you to stop him by blasting asteroids, obviously. As well as the plot, pickups make an appearance as you travel through the levels, which allow you to power up your ship with various abilities like multiple shots, shields, and just flipping the fuck out. There's also 3 ships you can swap between on the fly to make you balanced, tougher, or faster. Our brand new powers come at a cost, however, as the energy bar, which also serves as your life bar, shrinks whenever you get hit or move, making it very difficult to survive. You can collect these sparks to restore energy, but they don't appear often, and with how floaty you are, and with how tiny they are, it can be hard to grab them or even see them in the first place. Should your bar empty, you die and have to start the level again. However, in some situations, like being unlucky enough to be killed by the exit level portal, you don't have to do the whole thing again. Good! Otherwise, something was going to get broken. It's certainly a step in the right direction and is more involving than its previous entries. As I said, I will go into further detail when I make this into an arcade episode, but could the Asteroids series keep this good impression up? Well, fans may have enjoyed it, but Atari didn't see a reason to make another installment to the Asteroids series for a while, and by a while, I mean 8 years. The 90s had arrived, and with it came portable gaming, 3D graphics, and a whole heap of things we look back on.
Would you like a wagon wheel?
Gaming technology was advancing fast, and series of both old and new were being thrown into the modern age. Accolade made the first Asteroids title of the era by publishing a Game Boy title, which was nothing but a copy of the classic title. Asteroids was featured in a double game pack on the Atari Lynx, which, at its core, is a watered down version of the arcade title with basic graphics and less power-ups. It was starting to look like Atari had given up on the series altogether. In '96, they decided to give it another try, this time jumping into the realm of 3D, starting with the PS1 title simply named Asteroids. We start off watching what looks to be a transport vessel crashing into an asteroid field. I can only imagine the idiot pilot who thought that was a good idea.
Oh, Greenland is a barren land, a land that bears no green. Where there's ice and snow and the whale fishes blow.
The crew escapes and your ship, ready to blast some space rocks, takes off for action. And then, JPEG of the title card. Gameplay wise, the game is somewhat decent. You get a choice of 3 ships with different stats and a 4th that you can unlock, the Excalibur. You're given a briefing which tells you what to expect from the zone. When you enter a level, you have to play through 15 stages in order to advance through the 6 zones. Each zone comes with its own set of enemies, power-ups, and potential environmental hazards that keep you on your toes and stop the game getting stale. The biggest flaw is that the game is kind of dark, which means that some of the targets are hard to see against the black background. Being sucker punched by a rock is an unusual but irritating thing to experience. The controls will instantly feel familiar to veteran players. X boosts, square shoots, triangle shields you, circle uses a power up, and L1 hyper jumps? I don't think so, as that would imply you have control. Instead, you just pop up at a random location on the screen. Each level comes with some unique enemies, even at level 1, which I appreciate because it helps feel like a new take on the format without changing it too much. Level 1 alone has crystals that regenerate if they aren't destroyed quick enough, bombs that will kill you if you get caught in the blast, and an alien ship that throws its safety ring at you, or slowly, and I mean slowly, tries to ram you. If I was to list every type of enemy in the game, we'd be here a while, but some of note are Halley's Comet, the giant indestructible kidney stones, and the dreaded space sperm. These enemies are tough, but there is an artful of arsenal to make you just as tough. You'll see pickups fly across the screen. If you can control yourself enough to grab them, you'll either get a weapon or a buff to help you. The buffs will recharge your shields or give you an extra life. The buffs can be found in every zone, but the weapons will change every zone. You can tell the different weapons by the colour of the actual tube, and then the type of weapon will vary depending on what symbols are coming off it. Again, listing them all would take a while, but my favourites were the homing missiles, the Arse Sword, and the Armageddon. Complete level 15 of a zone and you'll be taken to the next one, given the new brief, and another 15 levels await you. On top of that, every stage after this one comes with a hazard that will try and disrupt your rock smashing urges. Zone 2 has a wormhole that disrupts your movement path, 3 has a sun firing solar flares at you, 4 features the king of all space sperm, and 5 gives you a whole planet you need to protect as asteroids try to seek revenge by destroying your home. Then, if you defend the Earth, you advance to the final zone where there is no hazard, but instead, a boss waits you at the end of stage 15, who is disappointingly easy to beat. Woo! He defeated the piss-weak boss! We shall celebrate this day for many years to come, and it shall be known as... Oh, it's over. At least I was able to unlock the original Asteroids by playing the first zone, which is pretty cool. The arcade title was a step in the right direction, but the PS1 title took it a step further. I would highly recommend this over the arcade title if you ever get the chance. Not to say that the arcade one is bad, even if it is clearly a milker, but the PS1 version does what the arcade one does, but better. In 1999, Asteroids emerges onto the N64 with Asteroids Hyper 64, which feels and plays like a director's cut of the PS1 title. Numerous changes, added and taken away content, with various improvements, likely splits the audiences. While there's no cutscenes, there are a lot of new enemy and weapon types with improved graphics all around. The secret Excalibur ship is now usable from the very start, and at the end of every 15th level, there is a boss you need to fight. As you might expect, a ton of similarities remain. The look of the levels, the power-ups have hardly changed, the title card is still a JPEG concept piece, and even the problem of darkness is still here to sucker punch my ass. Compared to the PS1 entry, Hyper 64 feels more like an arcade game, whereas the PS1 feels like a Netflix edgy reboot. I think, in terms of Asteroids, I would prefer the N64 version, and for a long time, this was advanced as the series was going to get. Hearing the name Asteroids again would likely mean that you saw it in an Atari games collection, in the Xbox Live Arcade, a phone game, or the strange first-person base-building defense game from 2015, which, I'm gonna be honest, looks just awful. But the final title we're going to look at is, as far as I can tell, the most recent official game of the series, Asteroids Recharged. Keen-eyed viewers might think it looks a lot like the Breakout game I covered back in episode 3. Well, you would be correct. Sneaky Box and Adam Vision Studios are back to take on another classic. But is it as impactful as Breakout? Almost. The graphics are stylized and pretty, the ship handles really well, the music and sound give it that classic yet updated feel, arcade and challenge mode gives you a lot to do, and it's a great feeling game with lots of destruction and slaughter of all alien kind. What lets it down, however, is the power-ups. Some of them are genuinely helpful, like the deflector shield and the super ultra mega death laser of pain. Yet a few of the weapon power-ups aren't as powerful as you would like them to be. A common one is the 3-round blast, and there's a 7-round version of it too. The hit detection on them both is noticeably shoddy, and direct hits often leave targets unaffected. Another weapon, the trail bullets, are meant to leave a damaging trail behind them, but the trail lasts for such a small amount of time that it hardly makes a difference, let alone touch anything. Another issue I feel is present is that the game feels kind of easy. You all know I'm shit at games, and if I am doing well, then that definitely means something is wrong. The arcade mode is fine. It has a good degree of challenge in both the classic and recharge modes, even though I was able to get all the score achievements on my first run in classic mode. Challenges are where things got weird for me, as I was able to beat a lot of them on my first attempt, whereas if I had to attempt multiple times, I never tried more than 3 before achieving victory. It doesn't feel as intense as Breakout did, but that could be because, in comparison, the formula of Asteroids isn't as demanding as Breakout. If you miss in Asteroids, oh well, that's fine, I'll just move out the way. Miss in Breakout, you failed! You have brought disgrace to your family name, you loser! Despite these flaws, Recharged is still great fun, and if you want some time to kill, this is a good title to do it. But I personally found more enjoyment in the Breakout title. So, Asteroids. Did I like it? Well, it's a simple but effective concept. It's a strange phenomenon in video gaming when we play modes where we know we're gonna die, we know we're going to fail, and we know there's zero chance of us winning ever. But we still want to see how far we can get, and defeat doesn't deter us in the slightest. Asteroids does it really well, and for the period of its conception, it's a groundbreaking title as well as concept. The problem is that as time went on and gaming concepts got more complicated, Asteroids failed to keep up, and eventually became a title that occasionally appeared with little to offer, like that one cousin you see once a year and say no more than 4 words to at family reunions. There's a few of the later titles I did enjoy, but I have to judge the very first one. It's simple, it's challenging, and it's tense fun. So for those reasons, Asteroid is filed under yes. What about you though? Do you like Asteroids? Do you hate Asteroids? Do you think the series is underrated? Should there be more games? As always, your comments are welcome down below. As you're typing out, I thank you for watching, and remember, you're always welcome at the Spectrum.